What is up? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hobby Hotline, episode 230. Wow, holy cow, that is a lot. But what is going on, everybody? My name, of course, is Drew, or the DH. Joining me today, first we've got Erica. Love what you collect. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Fresh off of attending the Philly show last night,
Nice.
so it was okay. It was interesting. I always find it very interesting when you have multiple shows going on the same weekend. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I want to hear about that Philly show because I hate that I'm missing it right now, but I have
yeah.
enough travel coming up this month. And also joining us today, we do have Heroes for Sale, the man Adam. What's up, dude?
Just doing content, as much content as I can. Things are going well. Obviously excited to be here. Excited to get into some of the great topics we have today.
Yes, well, that we do, guys. And always, as always, feel free to call in, join the show if you'd like. If you've got any questions, comments, or anything that you'd like, you can call in on video or audio. Just click that link right there. I'm going to put it here in the comments as well. All you got to do is simply click the link. That's it. You're more than welcome to join the show. We would absolutely love to have you guys. But yeah, we'll dive right into it. And I guess we'll start with some of the big news that just dropped. That I kind of saw coming, but we'll see what everyone says. But TikTok banning sports card breaks. There were a lot of sports card breaks going on TikTok. I know a lot of people that don't do it anywhere else except for on TikTok. And TikTok laid the hammer down, and no more sports card breaks on TikTok. So what do you guys think about that? It's pretty interesting.
Um, the first thing I thought about it was what's going to happen with the other social media platforms
Yep.
like Instagram. I thought about Instagram next, and I'm like, it's going to be very interesting. I think it's I think in a way it's good that they put their foot down because obviously they did it for a reason, and obviously they're probably doing it so things won't get worse, in terms of like scams or people not getting what they're supposed to accept as it grows. So I think rules and regulations kind of start to need to be more in place, on social media breaking apps.
Yeah. No, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think breaking and like opening packs of cards has been fairly popular on that platform, to be honest.
Yes.
I mean, I think what you probably will end up seeing in the future is going to be like one of the things. Actually, one second, sorry.
You're fine.
You're good, no worries.
We have a
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry. The one thing, at least from all the social media platforms, like I think it'll be interesting to see what Instagram and Twitter maybe do, because like they have adopted TikTok's features a lot quicker than the other way around. Like,
Mhm.
also, I think there was money to be made in breaking and like on the platform. So like if somebody in some sort of marketing or finance department saw that there was money being made on the platform and they weren't getting a piece of that, they were probably like, we're not doing that anymore. Like on
Mhm.
Instagram, I think there is like the shop feature, but like I don't necessarily know how many breakers are using that shop feature to sell breaks. But if they are, Instagram and Facebook are getting a piece of that money there. So, I mean, overall, like, I guess we'll see when it comes to like what they do next. Cause like also the one thing about TikTok is the platform is very fluid. Like they change a lot of stuff all the time. Like probably like a year ago, they pretty much banned anything that had to do with crypto. Like crypto accounts were being like shadow banned. You couldn't talk about crypto. You couldn't do anything that had to do with crypto. Now they've loosened it up a little bit, so it's not as strict. So I don't know if necessarily that's the next step for TikTok when it comes to like card breaking. But I mean, I guess, like I said, we'll see. Like TikTok's been, since I've been using it, it's been very fluid and like things have changing. And card accounts have, grown on there pretty significantly in terms of how many people are on there over the past 2-3 years. So it's, like you said, there are people that are only doing breaks on TikTok. So unfortunately for them, they may have to find another platform. But at the same time, it's like, they were sort of running their business almost for free in a way.
Right.
Like that's sort of where in sports cards and in business in general, like that can only go on for really so long before someone wants to get in there and maybe get their piece of the pie or just stop people from making money. So it's like the people, hopefully they were trying to grow on other platforms so they can move to Alt or not Alt, excuse me. They can move to Whatnot or they can move to Loop. But I don't know. I guess we'll see sort of what the fallout of this ends up being.
Yeah, I like a lot of things that you just said, and I agree with a ton of them. And Rex, I actually do want to touch on your comment here in just a moment for just a second. But the TikTok thing, I wasn't surprised at it because, like you said, they do a lot of changes and like quite often, and they do seem to tend to regulate a lot of stuff more than other people. Shocker. From where they're located, I think you can figure that out. But to me, it either looks like they're stopping it so they can implement a feature where they can get a piece of the pie, but out of it, or maybe they do just end up banning it. Now, on Instagram, I know a lot of the bigger companies are starting to use that shop feature. A lot of the smaller companies and stuff, absolutely not. But I know a lot of people that do utilize the shop feature greatly on Instagram that are sports card accounts. But the breaking on there is gonna be interesting to see what happens. I don't use TikTok much. I'm fully aware of it, have an account and all that type of stuff, but I don't use it a ton. But luckily for people that are just breaking on TikTok, there's 1,000 other outlets for you to choose from. And that's kind of where I want to touch on Rex's comment real quick. Rex, in regards to the Fanatics platform, they mentioned at the Topps conference that all products, including Panini products, Leaf products, all that type of stuff, Upper Deck, anything, it'll all be allowed to be sold on that platform. It's not going to be Topps exclusive. Now, there will be breakers that are on there that are signed up through them, and there'll probably be a process to do that. But in regards to what cards will be sold, they specifically did say that it would be all brands, not limited to just Topps. So did just want to let you know and throw that out there. But in terms of all that, it is kind of questionable because Instagram has a massive breaking presence. I just know from accounts that I follow, I get notifications every time I'm on there. So-and-so started a live video, and I know right away if it's a break or content, and I see it all the time. So that it is kind of interesting. And then Facebook groups, Facebook knows it's been going on for a long time. It's kind of started on Facebook. Facebook does their group checks. They've shut down groups that do it wrong. I think they know it's going on, and I just don't think they care personally. Or if they do, they haven't done anything about it. But with TikTok doing it, doing this ban, do they start? Do they start to pay attention? Do they start to care? Because there's a lot of money going through this. Like you said, some people made their living just off of TikTok breaks. I know somebody personally that has no social media presence anywhere except for on TikTok that would do thousands upon thousands in 2 hours. And so there are quite a few that relied on that heavily. So it's interesting and kind of a shock.
I think too, one other kind of thing I was thinking about was like, this honestly might have just been a decision by like one person.
Right.
Like when it comes to these big platforms, like, although, obviously us as a card show or everybody in sort of the card world, it's like, it's our everyday, but like for somebody who's making rules or changing rules on platforms, like they may not even know what card breaking is. Like they may just look at it because the other thing is like one thing that I think that they banned was like scratch tickets. Like that was like another weird niche.
No, that was a massive market. Someone would buy up like 100 of them, and then they'd go in and sell them and do them together and split the money and stuff like that. Yeah.
So like it may have just been like one person making a decision that they didn't, like I said, they don't even necessarily know what sports cards are. They don't know what sports cards breaking is. So like they may have just looked at, or I mean, it's really like it could even just be like maybe the person making the decision had a kid that got ripped off on TikTok, and then they decided that they wanted to ban it. So it's like it's not like it's going to this big committee and they're making, and like a bunch of people are making the decision. Like it was probably like 1 to 2 people in a department that decided to make this decision. So like what went into that, we don't really know. It could be as simple as one of those, or it could be like, I don't know, maybe they've been looking into it for a while, but because it just seems sort of random that they just decided to do it. I guess that's kind of my other thought about it as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's, or it could be a couple issues that alerted them on it. I think it's very interesting, and it's also interesting because they might allow it back eventually, but maybe with some different rules, or maybe they might implement some like settings where they could, get a piece of the pie, So I could see that coming back possibly.
Yeah. Now, Philly Joe makes a comment and says that you think it might have more to do with kids, minors, and that is a big possibility. I know on Whatnot, at least when I do shows and stuff like that on there, there's quite a few kids that are on there. Their parents know they're on there, though. Now, that's the difference when you get into TikTok and things like that. Are they, how are they paying for this stuff using their parents' accounts, all that? Maybe it does have something to do with kids. Like you said, though, there is no massive committee. I don't think this was some big, like 2-hour meeting, to discuss this and all that. I think it was just a snap decision over there that they decided they didn't want this on there anymore. And they're known for doing that quite a bit. So it's no shock to me. I mean, personally. But Foul Ball says it's the beginning of the TikTok fail. They're getting banned in the USA soon. I don't know if they'll get banned in the USA soon. I am not a fan of the platform whatsoever. So I would be perfectly fine. Did and went away. But we'll see. What do you guys think about that? I mean, do you think in regards to all this, do you think it's leading towards that, or what's all this?
That's the rumor. I've heard people say that. I don't know what to think, but because I personally don't utilize the app as much either. Just I'm more of Facebook, saying my age, and then Instagram, and those are the two, and then of course YouTube. But I think it's very interesting what's going on with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there has been the rumor for a while that it's going to get banned, but I think the real reason why it might get banned is because like Silicon Valley and like the US tech companies, they work with the US government pretty closely in most cases. And if Facebook or Twitter want to go to the government and say, hey, we need this banned, here's the money that we're going to give you, then there's probably a decent chance that it's going to get banned. Like all the or at least a lot of the big US social media companies are all sort of Silicon Valley tech companies, and I mean also that's sort of what I think, at least.
No, I agree. I think that has a lot to do with it. It is going to be interesting to see. And Eric, you brought it up. I do think that they might implement some type of platform into there where they can get some share of the revenue through this. They're a company that likes to test things and try things, so it would not shock me whatsoever if they put a half-ass attempt of something out there. I think that's quite possible. But big news, obviously, and big news for a lot of people. TikTok banning sports card breaks. As Rex says, you should be 18 or over to buy in a break, in my opinion. Too many opportunities for kids to be taken advantage of right now. And Rex, I agree with you. I have so many kids that I've interacted with and seen people take quite a big advantage of kids. US Sports Cards also says he has a hobby goal for the weekend is to cross over 25K listings in his eBay store. Wow. Good luck on that goal. I've got next week, I've got a goal of entering about 20,000 cards for people into PSA. So I know those goals. But guys, something that kind of ties into the whole TikTok thing and something that I think we need to touch on a little bit is the alt and BGS stuff going on. If everyone's not aware, alt is suing Beckett right now, BGS, over a Steph Curry gold rookie card that they graded a 9.5 that after further review and a whole bunch of stuff that went on, Adam, I'll let you go into it if you'd like to, was discovered to have been trimmed. So that they are now suing Beckett. And this is, it sounds like just another lawsuit. You hear stuff all the time in the hobby. There's a lawsuit going on here, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really mean much, like the class action against redemptions. Good luck, guys. Have fun. You're losing. But I mean, stuff like that, that's just whatever. This one's a little different.
I think, I mean, I think I'm probably maybe a little bit naive to the fact of like lawsuits and stuff like that. But like, I think that depending on how this pans out, like we are seeing sort of, lawsuits coming or lawsuits that have happened in the future, setting precedents in the hobby for like future action that could be taken. Like it sort of comes down to like where, like, I guess from the lawsuit, from this specific lawsuit perspective, I think it comes down to kind of like where is the liability, and if the person or company that's liable, like if it's actually actionable in the court, like,
right.
Because if they say, like, because I guess I don't know I don't know the back end or like what will happen. Like, I don't know, like the law, I guess, when it comes to that. Like, I don't know if they're going to say like, if you did this, even though it may have been an accident, you still have to, pay damages or something along those lines. I think ultimately, from my perspective, I think that what happens here is like, maybe this will happen, maybe it won't, but it'll be like there'll have to be maybe more back end data on sales of cards to figure out like who submitted it, when the card sold, like, and then they'll have to go back and maybe it might even lead to like you can't sell a card on eBay, or you can't sell a card somehow without having some sort of registered business. Like it's there. I think that there's a lot that could come from this lawsuit depending on how it pans out.
And US Sports Cards brings up a really good point, and something that I think is going to be a very big, which makes me think they have this filmed in some way, shape, or form. But they did crack the card when they tracked, because what happened and how they found out it was trimmed, for those of you that don't know, it was in the BGS holder. They had it at Golden. Before they put it up for auction, they decided to crack it and cross it over at PSA. They did not do a submission where it's just a crossover. They did a crack and cross is what it's called. And so the fact that it was at Golden makes me think that it's probably videotaped and that Golden probably had all that information, and it was probably cracked at Golden before it was sent. But when it was sent to PSA, that's when they found out it was trimmed. So they did crack the card out of the case, which, like he says, does that break any chain of conditional custody? There's a lot of stuff that's really interesting to me in this, and that's one of the big ones, which would the courts are leaning towards, at least it looks so far, by the fact that, first of all, Paul Lesko, anyone that doesn't know, he is a lawyer and loves to cover all the hobby news going on. I don't think he would be covering this as much if he didn't think there was some sort of validity in it, because he seems to be heavily involved in this and looking it over. I don't think he would be, you don't see him talking about the class actions and all the BS lawsuits that come out there yet. You see him talking about this a lot. So I don't know if the breaking the chain of custody is going to ultimately matter. I think it's going to come down to, is it videotaped? Was it filmed? Can they tell from the images that they have in the case and when they got it that it is exactly the same and it hadn't been trimmed, once they took it out of the case? All that type of stuff. There are identifiers and things that hopefully they can figure out. I doubt they're cracking it and then doing a press and trim. So if they were going to trim it, they would have to just trim it there. You'd be able to see something obvious. Just where the card was, I don't see how it would be possible to do the trimming themselves. But that's just my thoughts on that. But Erica, what do you think about all this? This is a pretty big one.
Yeah, it is big. I'm glad. I'm kind of glad that this has been brought to light, because the lack of accountability on so many aspects that affect the end consumer has just been like mind-boggling. It's just to the point where people will just be like, "Oh well, that's what it is." Could be something as simple as buying some wax and the guaranteed auto in there is not in there, or the card's been eaten by Benji the dog. Like stuff like that. But we're so accustomed to just letting it go and just being like, "Oh well, it's chances." But no. People, these companies need to be held accountable. These companies need to be more consistent. These companies need to have a better system in place for when mistakes do happen, for it to be resolved the proper way. So I'm hoping that this case kind of leads to that. And I think it probably depending on the outcome of it. But I definitely think that the inconsistency in grading is a huge issue. Like it's mind-boggling, like, to me.
Oh no, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I deal with over probably 500,000 cards for PSA a year, and the absurdity in some of the grading that I see, in a company that I support, and a company that I like, and sadly, next to them and SGC, in my opinion, have the best grading standards, and so even that, I see so much frustration. So the inconsistency is massive, and that is a big problem. And probably something that lawsuits like this can change a lot of stuff. It can provide precedents for future cases for lots of different stuff. Now they are seeking $350,000 in financial losses on this Curry. Saying that BGS failed to exercise reasonable care or competence when it first evaluated the Steph Curry rookie card in October 2016. And so Alt says, relying on BGS representations, they massively overpaid for nearly worthless trimmed card. Now, Philly Joe makes a very, very good point that I was actually going to bring up, that grading is just an opinion.
True.
It is not something that is automatically guaranteed. We have just taken it in the hobby and accepted that these are experts, that it adds extra value. Ultimately, it is just an opinion. So, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting one. Bay Area guy says, it doesn't matter if a human or a computer grades a card, it'll always be based on eye appeal. That I agree with. What do you guys think in terms of that?
Yeah, I think one thing about our industry is that like it has been almost it was almost exclusively not online for so long that like now that it is online, we are kind of seeing more of the issues that maybe existed when it came to grading. Like if this card hypothetically, if this happened, I don't know, 10 years ago, there's a chance that we never even would have known that this happened and then this Steph Curry rookie card potentially is like we probably wouldn't have known that Alt paid $160,000 for the card, and we also probably wouldn't have known that they cracked it and tried resubmitting it, and we wouldn't have known that maybe there was a lawsuit because the content or whatever on the internet for sports cards has grown so dramatically over the past 5-6 years. And I think too, just when it comes to grading, like it's like we all have day jobs, or most of us do. And so like, if you think about it, like a grader at PSA, that's just their job. So it's like, think about the amount of times you're at your job and you just maybe, I don't know, or having a bad day, or you don't put in your best work that day. Like, unfortunately, when it comes to that, like that grader or the company is grading something that could potentially be worth $160,000.
Exactly.
And like, whatever, they sat in traffic that morning or they dropped their coffee. It's like they may have missed the signs that this was a trimmed card because they maybe weren't paying attention, but it's not even like it's not necessary. It is some graders' fault potentially, but also at the same time, it's like, if you think about your day job, like, or any job that you have, like, are you, obviously there's people some people will say, well, yeah, I give 100% effort on my job every single day, but it's like, I don't know. I would say there are people that maybe don't. So it's like, for some people, they would look at it and say, well, grading cards, that must be such an easy job. And other people are like, well, it's my job. And I look at it from both perspectives. But yeah, ultimately, like, grading comes down to like the person that day looking at the card at that specific time. And there are so many other factors that affect that person's judgment on the card, especially with like, if you look up like Luka Doncic, PSA 10 Prism, there are going to be 100 different listings that look different. So it's like the standards of grading are pretty wide when it comes to modern companies as well. So it's like, I don't know. Those are kind of all the things that I'm looking at, I guess.
Well, I also look at it like what you just said about how if you look at if you looked at 50 Luka PSA 10s, they'd all look a little different. That goes back to, I think, the comment that said it's all about eye appeal, because people seem to think that they look at it and they say, oh, well, how could this card get a 10? It's off center a little bit. Well, if the rest of the card's perfect, then that's probably why. Because centering is only one aspect of it, but it is the biggest one in terms of eye appeal. At least your initial eye appeal is going to be the centering on the card. And so, yeah, everything is going to look a little bit different. Good luck, USA Sports Cards. He's sub with Sports Card Nation. Good old Mr. Newman. And apparently he's getting his cards back very soon. Good luck on your first submission. It's always a lot of fun to open up that box for the first time. Barry, a guy, I fully agree with your statement. I feel when I send in a sub 20 card ranging from 55 to 2020, and they all come back 10s. The grading got lucky the night before. Yes, that had like that type of stuff absolutely has an effect. I know multiple graders from multiple companies. I'm very good friends with the head grader at Beckett. First of all, grading is a very low paying job. There is 6 to 8 months of training, and then you are in a very dim lit room dealing with just grading all day long. So yeah, absolutely people are going to have, and that's on top of the fact that just naturally people are going to have bad days. You said, Adam, a lot of people will say I always give 100% at my job. Yes, from your perspective, you do.
Right.
But in reality and the perspective of other people, there's going to be days where you don't. And that's just being human. It's being normal. But a lot of people can have it affect them in different ways. And obviously, you see so many different graders. Graders are leaving. Graders are coming in. Well, if they're on their way out, it could be a whole lot worse. You never know. And so it really is a crapshoot. And the problem with it is, Adam, you kind of highlighted it as if someone has a bad day, let's say at just like McDonald's or something like that, or Walmart, then yeah, okay, it might affect the customer a little bit, but it's not going to affect them a lot. If a grader has a bad day on someone's cards and they're grading those cards that are $350,000 curries and $100,000 cards, or even a couple $100, where a 10 to a 9 goes from 5,000 to 350 to 400 bucks, the difference in the grade. Well, that really trickles down to the consumer, and that's the big issue, is that it ends up hurting the consumer a lot more when they have those bad days. And so it's a dangerous game, but it's one that's been accepted in the hobby.
Agreed. Well said. Definitely well said. I fully agree.
Adam,
anything else on alt and everything before we move on? Or
yeah, I mean, like, I just think I look at it a couple, again, obviously there's differences in opinions, and I think everyone's going to have a different opinion about grading. And it's always a hot button topic whenever people are talking about it, because some people love it, some people hate it, some people love PSA, some people hate PSA. But it's like, I think when it comes to a card, I guess maybe I would like to see at some of the grading services, like if you grade a card, like, and it's, a Steph Curry rookie that's going to be worth $168,000. Like, I would, if I were running the grading company, I would say we need at least 2 or 3 other people to look at this card to make sure. And I guess it's almost like you have to be careful, because it's like how they're grading so many cards. How closely can you look at every single one? Like right. If somebody gets 30 Lukas, like, hypothetically, and I don't know the back end of how they're grading the cards, but it's like let's say hypothetically one grader is grading 30 Lukas. Let's just say that, for example. They're getting the Lukas, they're looking at it, they're saying, okay, this looks fine, maybe it's a 10, this one looks okay. Like, but they're not comparing them all as one. They're looking at them each individually, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's tough because they're grading so many cards, and I wish that they could maybe spend a little bit more time on each one. But from a business perspective, obviously that's not a reasonable request, because like I said, if you're grading 30 Lukas, but you have 500 more that you have to grade that day, you're going to just go through those and you're going to give them a grade, and you're not even going to think twice about it because you got 500 more cards that you have to grade. So it's like, and those are numbers I made up. I don't know. I'm hoping that, or I don't know if one grader is grading 500 cards a day, but either way, I'm just looking at it like, if that person's looking at 30 Lukas, once they get to the 30th one, they're like, whatever, this is a 9. I don't care. Like, especially if they know the population percentage, like if they know the Luka is like a 75% 10 rate, if they get those 30, somebody might even just look at it and say, okay, I'm just going to give 75% of these a 10. And that's not even going to be a drop in the bucket for the population, But the Steph Curry card, if it's a higher price card, I would hope that there maybe is a second or third eye looking at it. But, there's just too many cards, I think.
My hair is. I can't hear.
For some reason, I don't know why.
Okay.
We were muted there for a second.
Okay, but, no worries. You're back.
Yeah,
what were you saying?
Good deal. No, I was saying that in regards to Bay Area guy, where he said Peter Steinberg said it best, they're the referees of your cards. The big name cards, I will say, I do know for a fact, they are looked over by people. Say they're looked over by a supervisor and then a manager. And I believe at SGC, I'll confirm with Peter this weekend, and we'll put it on the socials. But I believe as well that once the grader looks at it, a couple other people look at it as well at PSA. I can confirm with Beckett too that they do the same thing. But if a grader grabs a random box and it's 30 Lukas right there, they're churning those out in 20 to 30 seconds, honestly. Like per card, you might get a minute on the card if they've got a look, or if they have like an idea that there may be a scuff or a dent or something like that on it, or if it's some of the refractor cards with prism and stuff like that, where it's a little more difficult to see imperfections. Those take a little bit more time, but when you ask and if people are grading 500 cards a day, absolutely they are. I can confirm that 1,000%. So, I mean, it's interesting. With alt and the whole BGS thing, I think BGS honestly just missed it. And the first time around. And this goes back to we had the FBI raid this weekend on the big trimming scandal. A lot of those cards that were trimmed were put in real PSA holders. They sent a lot in and got them through. This stuff gets through all these grading companies all the time. There's plenty of people, Wax Museum, who tracks the RPAs and the swapping of the RPAs. How many of those have gotten through millions of times by grading companies? So, I mean, you see it all the time. There's still Troy Aikman fake autographs that were auto penned from Topps in PSA holders are still out on the market, and they tried to do a recall on them, yet they still grade them as authentic autographs. So I think it's a case of it just got by Beckett. And then once it was moved to a PSA slab, now that Beckett's values dropped so much and it's really under SGC values now, obviously they wanted it out of that slab. And then that's when they found out that it ultimately was trimmed when it was looked over a second time. But we did have US Sports Card ask, was Alt the company that compromised their consumers' data when they were in their early days? Yes, they are. Alt has had a couple of issues that has made some people quite upset in the past, and I know a lot of people have strong opinions on Alt. But in regards to the lawsuit, I ultimately think Alt probably loses this lawsuit. If I had to guess from today, what I see right here, I think they ultimately lose it, not because they cracked it out or anything. I just don't think logically it's possible for them to have done the trimming. But I just don't see with what we've talked about grading being the refereeing of your cards, being subjective and all of this type of stuff. I don't see how they can quantify that. Now, of course, selling a fake card and everything, that's a different story. But I don't know. Something tells me they're not going to win this. There's too many variables and there's not precedence in the industry for them to really have a lot of a leg to stand on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I actually have a question for you guys that I'm interested to know your opinion. Like, so obviously in this scenario, it was maybe a good thing that the card was cracked, but like, do we think that like the grading companies should either put some sort of like sticker on the inside of the cases or some sort of way that makes it so you can't crack cards? Cause like, I think I'm very 50-50 on like if I think it should be, because like I said, it's grading is all subjective. So it's like you could get a card graded and crack it and get it graded again. You could do it 10 times and you could potentially get 10 different grades on that card. I mean, especially if you're cracking it, there's probably a chance that it's been dinged a little bit. But at the same time, like, do you think that there should be a way that stops people from cracking cards, or do you think it's like something that's like once it's graded, if you look at the card and you think it should be a higher grade, you should be allowed to get it regraded if you want, I guess?
I 1000% think that there should be a way, and I don't care if people are assigning that, hey, if I'm going to get this graded, that there's some type of mark that's, issued, on the card or something in some way, shape, or form. I do think that I don't think that there should be a way to make them stop people from cracking it, because like I'm collecting the Bryce Williams rainbow. Well, that's one that I have the super in a SGC slab. So I want all the other ones in an SGC slab to match, because it's for me. It's personal. It's not to resell, nothing like that. So if one of the only ones that I can or all of the other ones are graded by BGS and PSA, I'm going to want that card cracked to sub it for my PC. But I do think there needs to be a way to tell if the card has been removed and has been crossed over. And it would take the grading companies, I think, working together and tracking serial numbers to even be able to do it with cards that are graded. But then you go into like the companies I work for, Gem Mint, we do a lot of cracking crosses. So we crack thousands like all the time. And so I do think there there should be a way to tell if that card's been graded before, whether it be adding like Bay Area invisible ink on the sleeve on the insert or some type of tamper-proof thing or somewhere, shape, or form that shows this has been graded. A great example is the Russell Wilson contender autos. There are, I think it was like 25 or 50 total. He didn't have a lot. There's over like 150 to 175 graded through all the different pop reports because it's been crossed and regraded so many times. And I do think that there needs to be a way to track that stuff. I would think with imaging and AI and everything that we have now, that would be the better use of AI than trying to have a robot grade the cards, but actually check to see if they've been graded, where they've been graded, if they've been altered, etc. But that's just my opinion.
And I agree. I definitely am for people being allowed to crack cards. I love when people crack a graded card and put it in one touch, especially like older.
I do that all the time.
I love that. Yeah. But I do agree with both of you guys. Like, there needs to be a way to be able to track it because the consistent cracking and it's kind of out of control and it's just like ludicrous to me. But I understand why people do it because the inconsistency with the grades,
Right.
from across the board, that's why people do it,
I did a test a couple of years ago just for fun with SGC and PSA. I sent the same card 6 different times. Same exact one, cracked it out every single time. PSA, I got 4 different grades. SGC, I got 5. So that right there tells you. And there was no damage like done to the card. It actually got better grades as it went on. But so, I mean, like the cracking had no effect on it. So yeah. Absolutely.
I think the Bay Area guy also had a comment about somebody he knew sent in an 86 Fleer Jordan like 11 times. And on the 11th try, I think he said that it got a 10. It's like, so there are 10 other Jordans that are in the population report that are not actually in the population report.
And those certs aren't decertified. You know what I mean? That's where it gets scary too, because if you're cracking these cards, you've got a cert now that's in the system that is real. You've got the flip that is real. Well, we just had the FBI case. How do you think they're able to get all this stuff so easily? You can put a fake in, make a fake slab. You've got a real flip with a cert that matches.
Yeah.
It's still legit. Like there's got to be some way. And I mean, I don't begin to have the answer to it. But when it comes to cracking it out, there's got to be some way to eventually tell. You know what I mean? To be able to have and I want to get the name right here. Stoops Baseball Cards AI is there to track cards by matching AI scans. That's really one way I think we need to be looking at using AI as opposed to let's have robots pick up and grab our cards, because I mean that's just ridiculous. We could go buy them at now if we wanted to. It's just expensive. But it is something that I think they definitely need to start tracking, because the pop reports and stuff like that are important on a lot of different stuff when it comes to set registries, when it comes to everything. And like you said, there's all those on that Jordan alone. That's 10 Jordans that aren't there, but there's 10 cert numbers that are out there that are still saying that it is legit and it is there, unless he just did a straight submit, which it doesn't sound like he did. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if Beckett would be able to do something similar, but like a couple of years ago, the 1/1 Juan Soto Superfractor auto was graded by Beckett, and then it was cracked, and the audio was actually altered, and then it was graded by PSA.
Yeah,
so
it was.
And then PSA, I think they bought the card themselves, so to get it off of the market, because obviously the auto was altered. So I don't know if that's something that Beckett could do, or any of the grading companies, if they know that they made a mistake, if something that's something that they could do. But like and I don't know, maybe that's a precedent that like if it had been some sort of court lawsuit, like then that's what the grading company has to do. If they grade a fake card or they grade a fake auto, like they have to they have to buy the card at market value to the person who bought it, so that way they can get their money back, but also get the card out of the like circulation of somebody that could potentially sell it again.
Yeah, PSA did do that. What happened with the Soto, if you're familiar with Soto's auto, if it's on card or sticker, really, he loves to take that long line all the way across the card and make it go off card. They did wipe the auto so it stayed on card. So it looked like, so the auto would get a 10. Once again, back when they were grading with BGS, because BGS had more value at the time. But then when they did cross it, PSA did do it, and they did get it off the market. And, that's the type of stuff we need to do. And that's a massive card. That was a huge card at the time. So, but we do have a couple of interesting ones. Kamikaze Sports Card Hybrid, putting chips in the slab, dye pack that squirts ink on the card. I don't think I want to go there when it comes to cards, but that is quite interesting. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with all that. But yes, Alt is suing Beckett. We'll keep you guys up to date, I'm sure, as this goes on, as I think we can all agree that whatever the decision is on here, it's going to set precedents as if it goes all the way through to a decision for a lot of other stuff in the future. Like, this can affect a lot of other scams, frauds, and issues in the future if Alt were to win this, or even if they lose, the wording that the judge uses and everything, this is going to be used as a precedent for a lot of things in the future, I think. All right, y'all. Before we wrap up today's show, figure we touch on something real quick that really touches close to home to me. But we had a little NFL news that's going to really shake up the quarterback market in the hobby. The Chicago Bears trading the #1 pick to my Carolina Panthers. We now have the #1 pick, which is never a good thing to say. But we have the #1 pick now, and Tua also got his fifth-year extension picked up by the Dolphins. So in the last 24 hours, we've had 3 teams. Basically, we've got the Panthers saying, hey, we're going to bet on somebody else instead of try and bring in a grizzled vet to run the system. But then you've got what I think the more important thing is, especially for the hobby, you've got the Dolphins picking up Tua, saying that Tua, you're still our guy, but you've got a year to prove it to us. Otherwise, they would have restructured his deal. So they're kind of saying, yeah, you've got that chance to show it to us. But the Bears, by picking up everything they did, they got DJ Moore, which, guys, DJ Moore is one of the most underrated receivers in football. This kid is a beast and exactly what Chicago was lacking. And he's expensive, but they got him. They kind of showed that Justin Fields is their guy. So we've got 2 quarterbacks from the last 2 classes that are now kind of thrust into the spotlight again, as the teams have said, hey, you're our guy. We're going with you. What do you guys think about everything that's going on in the football world right now? The trade and the Dolphins picking up Tua.
I think these teams are just trying to play a little bit more safe, because I think that Deshaun Watson going to the Browns and getting all that money and stuff really has a trickle effect on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
As you can see with like Lamar Jackson's situation and stuff. So I just think they're just playing it safe with the younger quarterbacks and the contracts that they have currently. So I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised. I think majority of the quarterbacks are just on the same playing field. You just have the top 3. But other than that, everybody's kind of just on the same playing field. And also, too, the Russell Wilson situation, him bombing so bad, was just, not good as well. So I think that's trickles effect on other players.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how time flies. Like that, the Dolphins are actually already picking up Tua's 5th-year option. Like it feels like he just got drafted. Like that's crazy. Yes. But I think the other thing too is like when it comes to quarterbacks and young quarterbacks, like I think it's good that teams are investing in their own players, because if you look at like a quarterback change, so like let's just say the Dolphins, for example, like they invested a top 10 pick on Tua. And if, hypothetically, yeah, sure, I think they have Teddy Bridgewater as the backup, but like in most scenarios, like if you invest a top 10 pick in a quarterback and then it doesn't pan out or it doesn't work, you're almost having to reset your whole entire franchise for a 4 to 5 year window if you're then getting another guy. And it's like, for Fields, I think he needs the weapons. Like, and I think the other thing when it comes to like draft picks and trading picks, like I'm the type of guy that I would rather trade the pick for a player in their second or third year already that's established, because, if hypothetically, like, I don't know, if let's just say if the Bears were to draft, and now they also still have the opportunity to draft a wide receiver, but it's like if you draft a wide receiver, what the best case scenario sometimes is like that they turn into DJ Moore. So it's like you get DJ Moore and then you also potentially get another player that you can develop. So it's like I look at draft picks and trading capital and stuff along those lines, like especially in the NFL with like so many players and so many picks, like if you can turn a second or third round pick into a player that's a starter on your team, like that's best case scenario for that pick in the first place. So like you're already almost skipping the 2 or 3 year window that you would have had to develop that player. Sure, they have to come into the system, but like getting a player instead of drafting a rookie, like I like the trading picks for that reason, or even just trading picks for other picks. It's also so interesting too. Like they got so many other picks for the number one pick. Like, it's like, who's to say they don't trade the 9th pick for like the 15th and then like another one or something along those lines. So like I think like I think it was like the Jets or some team had like, it was either last year or this year. They had like 4 like top 15 picks or something because they just were trading first round picks and got like a bunch of picks that just ended up being on teams that were not good. So I kind of look at it that way, like package your picks and get a player that you can bring in that's going to help your team rather than trying to develop someone that's, maybe you never know what's going to happen with that.
The coin flip. Yeah. Erica?
No, I agree. We'll see. I think more movement will happen. So interesting, very interested.
No, definitely. Bay Area guy says there are, and you look at the names we talk about just these guys, but the NFL is about to have like a basketball trade deadline shakeup with quarterbacks, honestly. Aaron Rodgers looks to be out. If he ever gets out of the ayahuasca phase, he might play some more football. You got Lamar Jackson with God, who knows what's going on with that situation. Garoppolo, Winston, Brady, everyone wants to say is coming back. He's not. But I mean, that Tua 5th-year option kind of put that to bed. But yeah, there's so many different quarterbacks that are going to change places. I know US Sports Card says if Aaron Rodgers ends up in New York, that is going to be interesting to see how his card market reacts to that. Because someone like Aaron Rodgers, even though I despise him, if he were to go to New York, I do think you'd see a massive hobby jump on his cards. And he doesn't have a ton of stuff out there, kind of in that Brady era where there's not a massive amount. So I think his high-end stuff would take a pretty big bump. But Green Bay, you're kind of already established in a legendary franchise with a massive collector base. So there might not be as much movement, and I don't think you'd win there personally either, but that's just a personal football opinion. But yeah, it's very interesting to me. I know the Fields trade with the Panthers, I love. Adam, I'm just like you. I love the draft picks as a way to move to take players. Because if everyone listens to any show I do, I always talk about I have a 3-year rule. I look at a player after 3 years once they've made their debut before I judge them on anything. Because it takes a lot of time to adjust to the pace of play, whether it be NBA, NFL, or whatever, the hitting, the scheming, everything, no matter what it is in any sport. So I give it about 3 years. I would much rather move that capital around for established players. Now in the Panthers case, I see why they did the number 1 pick move. And I don't mind it, because we were at 9 where we were probably going to be forced to either take somebody we didn't want or use that pick somewhere else or trade back. And so if you've got a whole new coaching regime in Frank Reich and a massively talented coaching staff, they want their guy. Apparently they feel that they found their guy. Otherwise they wouldn't have made this move. They would not. I don't see a brand new coaching staff trading all of that up for someone that they don't know that they like and they know that they want. And so I think they know exactly who they want and they want to build around that person. So I get it, but at the same, there's no quarterbacks available. If Tua's option hadn't been picked up or something, I say, okay, hold on, maybe go after Tua, maybe go after a Lamar or somebody like that. But apparently these guys saw somebody they liked. So I see why they use the picks, but I love the picks for grabbing, already in the league established talent. Otherwise, you're just doing a coin flip.
Yeah, the Bears' tank job this year actually was maybe the most impressive thing I've ever seen in sports. Yeah. Like for like 4 or 5 weeks there, like people were like, they might make the playoffs. And then like you get to the end of the season and somehow they got the number 1 pick and everyone still loves Justin Fields. Like it was pretty remarkable. Like from a fantasy perspective, like he was like a top 5 quarterback. Like if you had him in fantasy, you could have played him the whole season and he would have done like all right. But somehow the Bears still lost enough games that they got the number 1 pick somehow. It was really,
he was 34 yards away from breaking the all-time rookie rushing record for a quarterback in a tanking season. I mean, it was impressive. It was probably the most impressive thing I've seen the Bears do in a decade.
Yeah, right.
So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. But guys, we had just a couple minutes here, so I guess we'll probably wrap up this week's show. I got to go do my best Ted Lasso and go coach some kids in soccer. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Hobby Hotline. Adam and Erica, thank you so much for joining the show today. Guys, remember we are live every Saturday here on the Bench Clear Media Network. A lot of stuff coming up soon, so make sure to check all of that stuff out. And of course, hit us up with anything you need. Make sure to check out everyone's shows. Adam, Erica, love what you collect. Adam's for sale, mine, me get that potograph. And everyone else's shows, Sports Card Nation and all of that. And Hobby News Daily at the website launching April 1st as well. That is not an April Fool's joke. It is real. I know Erica's writing. I am as well. So definitely check that out. It'll be coming April 1st. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Hit some of the shows up. I know the Philly show is going on. A lot of different shows going on. So have some fun. Get out there, enjoy the weather. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.